What is going on, guys? Thank you for entering the chamber once again. I know it's been a little while. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm still a little sniffly. I've been under the weather, but I feel better enough now that I can put this out there. This is the deck that I've been working on in private, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Rotation is only a couple of months around the corner, and there's a lot of set 1 cards that are leaving, and I've been spending time working with some set 1 cards that either I always wanted to play and never got around to, or that I genuinely enjoyed playing with in the past and wanted to give them one last shot before they're gone from standard forever. And the character we're using to tie that all together with is the new Asui 3. Asui 3 is, at least in my opinion, a better designed version of Asui 1. She's still a fairly strong character that draws a lot of cards, helps keep her card pool a little clear, and you still get to use her to help smooth checks out because she's constantly readying, but she doesn't kick out her every card in her card pool and completely cheat with progressive difficulty. So I think she's a good character that you can do a lot of stuff with. Personally, I've seen a lot of people playing her either on water using Andrew Holder's list where it draws just a ton of cards, or they've played her on chaos as, no disrespect to anyone trying to play her this way, but at least in my opinion, as basically just like a strictly worse version of Tokoyami 1. It hasn't really impressed me. So I'm trying to do something a little differently here. We're actually playing her on the air symbol today. And the reason for that is because we're busting out a set 1 ultra rare that hasn't seen the light of day in some time, and that's none other than Meteor Shower. We're playing a full playset. So for anyone who wasn't playing when Shower was, the new hotness, Shower doesn't really do anything while it's the attack currently being played, but while it's in your momentum, you can discard a card and pick it up from your momentum. And if Shower is the attack being played, you can discard a momentum and put a Shower in your discard pile into your momentum. And then you can then discard a card and move that Shower from your momentum to your hand. So there's this like loop. This is kind of neat with Asui because of a new card that we got in Undaunted Raid, the secret rare for Emajiki, Manifest. Manifest moves a card in our card pool, like a Meteor Shower, into our momentum and then draws a card. We can then use the Asui ability to kick out the Manifest and cheat the progressive, and use Manifest as basically a way to, on demand, play additional copies of Meteor Shower. In addition, Manifest putting random cards in a momentum can also get turned into copies of Meteor Shower later when we play a copy. So this card kind of makes this Meteor Shower attack into a whole new animal. To help make this engine go even further, we play a staple of the old Meteor Shower decks and still sees play today. We're playing a full playset of Zero Gravity Lift. Gravity Lift is a 3/6 throw, so it's almost always going to deal damage, and while it's in your momentum, you can remove it from your momentum and make the current attack that's being played go into your momentum when that attack resolves, which again pairs very nicely with Meteor Shower. So this deck is basically about taking Meteor Shower loops and kicking them up to like a whole new level. Like you can play a Shower on a 4, play Shower on a 5, manifest the first Shower into your momentum, remove a Grav Lift, and the second Shower you're currently playing is going to go into your momentum when it resolves. Discard a card and pick up this first Grav Lift, and you can do it all again. So you can play like off just like a single Meteor Shower. Once you're set up, you can play 4, 5, 6 Meteor Showers on a relatively low progressive difficulty between Asui herself, keeping your card pool a little clear, and then just the gimmicks between Grav Lift and Shower's own gimmicks. So it's very easy to kill your opponent once they're at like 20 health and you're set up. You can just literally overload them with highs. Now, one of the ways that we help facilitate that game plan is we also jam a few copies of her new Ultra Rare Frog Hop. Frog Hop is kind of like a supercharged Meteor Shower, except that it has to deal damage for you to get a copy. Again, you can hit with it, just get a fresh Frog Hop, play the new Frog Hop, kick out the first Frog Hop with your character, and then jam the second one, and it carries this like second loop. Frog Hop has EX2, so we can get fast and use momentum, and it also is effectively a 5 high for 7 baseline, so it's a much beefier stat wise, and it kind of demands being blocked or interacted with, which then tends to open your opponent up to shower loops after they burn their best high block. And this is kind of the backbone of what we're doing. This was like a really big thing in set 1 using Amphibious Ambush, and this is just like a modern spin on that same approach of gameplay. To round out the attacks, we're playing 3 copies of Falling Skies. Skies is the card that we use to do that last little bit of damage and really like drive a lethal attack home. Alternatively, we can also use it as an easy throw if we mostly draw foundations. We can just jam this out as our first attack and our last attack, make it a throw, submit it for like, 7 or 8 damage, depends on our stage. Get in for whatever we get in, but it's like a guaranteed momentum. So Skies is almost all of our attacks are high, so it can get very large at the end of a string. It's a great opener for us if we're, trying to build and haven't really gotten the pieces that we need. It's just a great all-around card. To round out our attacks, we're playing a couple of other set 1 cards. First, we're playing 2 copies of Tongue Smack. Smack is frankly scarier in Asui 1 than Asui 3. In this character, this is like a 4/7 that draws a card, but it's still like additional card draw to help us like dig and find things that we need if our character doesn't quite get us where we need to go. Sometimes the last card you get here really does matter, and it's a relatively damaging high attack that must be blocked, which exposes your opponent to frog hops and showers. And then finally, to punish our opponents for only holding high blocks, we play just a couple copies of Frog Kick. Frog Kick is a slow, low attack, but if it deals damage, the next attack we play gets faster, and when this card leaves the card pool, we get to ready any foundation that hasn't been readied. This will work with our own character, and this will also work with Manifests. So this is a great way, if you play like a single high attack and your opponent blocks it, you can jam the Frog Kick and basically test and see if they're also holding a low block. If the Frog Kick connects, the next move you play is very fast. It can be a way to drive home that like last attack to get in for lethal. So we only play a couple copies because it's just a way to catch our opponent unaware. But when it's good, this card is very good. Moving into the foundations for this deck, we're going to start by talking about our zeros. We play a full playset of Requesting Assistance. We're playing throws and we're playing 4 Manifest. It's relatively trivial for us to get momentum. So Requesting Assistance works out to just flip to ready any foundation, which is obviously a very powerful ability. We're playing lots of foundations with good commit abilities in this foundation lineup. So this card is an all-around, mega star. And again, it's another one of those great set 1 cards that's going to rotate in a couple months. Next, we play 3 copies of Release. Release is our primary form of deadlock control and keeping ourselves out of deadlock. It's additional speed hate. This card has been like a meta menace basically since it came out in set 1. And it fits very nicely in here. Moving on to our 1 difficulty foundations. To start out, we play a full playset of Destined for Mainstream Success. This is yet one more set 1 card that's on its way out soon. This card basically lets you go for really long attack strings. When you flip it, you can declare the top card of your deck, and if the card that you called matches the top card of your deck, you get to draw it. If not, it'll stay. So what you do is you call attack, and if there's an attack on top, you draw another attack, and if there's a foundation or an action, you've guaranteed your next check is a 5. So this is like card draw and card flow at the same time. It's just like an incredibly powerful card. We also play 2 copies of Problem Solving. Problem Solving is a bit of stun hate if we end up building it, but we really use this card actually as a way to get like an extra like sneaky +1 when it gets discarded using typically with our character, but also with one of our primary foundations that we play. This card can mess with our opponent's block math if they think they have a lethal attack on us, or alternatively if they think that they're safe and that we can't play another attack. So it's a very sneaky card, but man, like I've absolutely won games from this +1. I almost want to play it at 3, but I'm trying to keep this deck at a clean 60. We also play 2 copies of Multitasking. Multitasking is a little rough because you really only want to ready foundations that don't matter, like face downs and 0 diffs and whatnot. And because the speed benefit, you're going to break even if you ready a card that can't be used. If you ready a card that is useful, you're coming out behind, at least on the speed front. However, you get some damage, and the damage pump is what's important here, because at the end of the day, Meteor Shower is like a 5 damage card, and if your opponent's not blocking, you don't get to keep readying Asui to give things a damage and draw more cards. So you're going to end up doing like 5 at a time, and that usually can't get there. So a lot of our other foundations from here, about making these 5 damage moves be a lot more than 5 damage, 6, 7, maybe even 8. And multitasking is a really important part of that. finally, we play on our ones. We play a single copy of Rescue Specialist. Specialist is a bit of speed pump for us. We tend to rely on overwhelming numbers of attacks as opposed to making our attacks faster, but sometimes we do need a way to pump speed, and the cost on this card is very trivial. It just checks for our character to be committed. We only play one because it is a 4 mid block and a 4 check, so it's like kind of rough. And we have other ways to pump speed too in this deck if we need to. Only a couple, but still some. So I think one, in my experience, has ended up being just the right number. A lot of times I don't even see this card and it's okay, but when I do see it, it's like fine. Occasionally it wins games, which is why I have it in here as a one of. Moving on to my two diffs. We're playing a single copy of Lemillion of the Big Three. This is kind of a boring card for us because all of our attacks are highs and we don't really play ways to change zones. But this just works out to being like a repeatable +1 damage pump. And like I said, it's very important for us to have ways to pump damage. We do have other ways to do that in this deck, but we jam the single Lemillion because it's unique, and the other card we're running for damage pump outside of the stuff we've already talked about and our character has a little bit more upside with kind of what we're doing. The other main damage pump we're playing two copies actually of Reaching Out. This is a card from the new Ochako structure deck. And it makes your current high attack get +1/+1, and then makes your next charge easier to play. Meteor Shower is a high charge attack, so it qualifies for both halves. What's neat about this card is that you can commit it to give something +1/+1, and then ready it by, say, flipping a Requesting Assistance, or by kicking out a Fraud Kick and getting a second use out of it. Even if you only get one use, it's still basically like a once per turn +1/+1. Since reducing the difficulty, you kind of break even. The extra +1s, when you apply them on the right attacks, can actively make a game. I've won a lot of games by getting a couple of uses out of this card and pushing moves just out of reach for my opponent. Moving on to some defense, we play two copies of Wall Cling. Cling is basically our Omni Block. We don't have access to Faith Shield or a lot of the other really gross like combat tricks because this is an air deck. We could play the Kurogiri 2 Foundation. I'm blanking on what it's called, but it's the when you block, you discard a momentum and you basically break or one your opponent for the turn. That's a card you could play in place of this if you don't want to play Wall Clings, because we do usually have a little bit of momentum to spare. But I really like Wall Cling mostly because it basically like guarantees a block. And this deck is actually very good at blocking. We draw a lot of cards. Asui can also be used as a repeatable resource. You get a lot of mileage out of it. So this card has been surprisingly good. I prefer Face Shields, but I wouldn't look down on this card. We play a playset of Specialist of Sound. This is our primary defensive card. You commit to make an attack very easy to block. We can ready it for another use with Requesting Assistance or with Fraud Kicks. So we get a lot of mileage out of it here. Also, it's very convenient that when we check it, it also confirms our next check. That's very powerful in conjunction with our character, who provides basically on-demand card draw. If we play attack on a 5 and check a Specialist and we see that there's an attack on top, well, we don't draw the card, we leave the 5 there, and then we can use our character to pass that check without much worry. If there's a 3, we can commit our character for the damage and draw the attack off top. So the information you get when you check this card, actually very relevant. So, like, surprisingly relevant. Our other main piece of speed hate that we play is a full playset of Nice Try. Nice Try is effectively just like a low risk foundation, because we can commit it on our opponent's turn for -2 speed, which is a bit of value, and we can commit it on our turn to pass checks, and then it will ready going into our opponent's turn. So this is kind of like counts as 2 foundations, and it helps us have like a bigger stage in some ways than like we physically do, which is one of the benefits of playing air. Because we're like constantly like readying all of these cards, we might only have like 6 or 7 foundations, but because we get to ready a lot of them or have other ways to like mess with our card pool and like reuse resources, it can end up being like 10, 12, 13 foundations effectively. And Nice Try is part of that whole system. Into our 3s, our primary 3 play is a full playset of Team Player. It is basically a reprinted Amphibious, which I'm going to put up on screen right now for a little bit. For people who are new, this is a banned set 1 card because effectively a 1 difficulty 5 check that counts as 3 foundations was just way too powerful, and it is way too powerful. This card has the same cost to ready itself as Amphibious, but it's a 3 diff, which makes it way more fair. It also comes with a neat ability to discard cards to provide stats. And because we draw a lot of cards with our character, and sometimes we get to draw extra attacks with things like Destined for Mainstream Success, we actually tend to have cards we can afford to throw away for attacks. And many of our attacks are water attacks, so you can get some mileage out of this. The toughest part is that our Meteor Shower attack specifically is not an ally or water card, so you can't use this to pump Meteor Shower, and that's the one thing I kind of don't like about this card. But it's hard to argue with a 3 difficulty foundation that's really 3 foundations. Like, you can commit this on your turn, ready it, commit it again. On your opponent's turn, if you stick a block and kick the block out, you can like ready it a 3rd time and use it, like, or use it once on your turn and twice on your opponent's. The math is the same either way. You get 3 uses out of this card per turn cycle. If you get 2 or 3 of these out, like, it's so hard to kill you, or to check poorly enough where you can't like complete strings. Very, very good card. Our last 3 diff is 2 copies of Rescue Completed. We have, like I said, lots of foundations that commit for various effects, but some of our other foundations, they either flip, and when they're done, they don't do anything, or they're more offensively focused effects, and we can't get a lot of value out of them once we're on defense. Rescue Completed lets us basically turn those other foundations into a bit of speed hate. We can also use it with our character, because our character will constantly ready, so if we really need to just strictly stick blocks, using Rescue to commit our character for the cost, and then passing our blocks and readying our character can be a great way to actually stick those blocks. The catch is we give up our card draw to do that, so you need to actually have enough cards to pass those blocks. But still, very useful. And then finally, the other action we play 3 copies of Seizing the Advantage. Seizing the Advantage is kind of nice, because it incidentally triggers Tongue Smack, because we play this and then play Tongue Smack, and the Seizing the Advantage has left our card pool, and it also makes that smack into like a damaging attack. But we really mostly use this card as a tool to just provide us with more foundations on our kill turns, but more importantly to turn off like disruptive defensive pieces. This deck ultimately relies on a loop of just constantly playing the same attack over and over until our opponent dies, after we've accrued enough momentum or tools to kill them at based on what their current health total is. And there are foundations that punish that, things like Night Watch or Can't Escape Me, things that like stop your opponent from like moving things out of your card pool, or putting things into your hand. And being able to hit and turn those cards off can guarantee that we can get our lethal strings through. So this is like our main piece of like board interaction with our opponent. It's a nice clean 60 cards, which right now is 10 over the limit, but starting January 1st, that's going to be the new like minimum deck size. So if you want to play a very different deck that not a lot of people are really trying on Asui, I would give this character a shot. I think a lot of people right now are playing her as like water draw 30 cards with Tasty Riff, which is fun, or they're playing her as like discount Tokoyami, which is fine, but I think she can do more than that on all of her symbols, frankly. And this is an example of kind of what I mean doing something with air. Give this deck a spin on like TTS Ultra, proxy it up, give it a shot. I think you're really going to be surprised. When I initially built this deck, I thought it would be kind of goofy, but I was very surprised by how well this did. This actually ended up being one of like the better like rogue decks that I've ever built. I could see with some further testing and optimization, something like this doing very well at like a PSC. Like generally, I know that seems crazy. It's an air deck without like Jira. That seems nuts. But this is it's like a genuinely powerful character doing a genuinely powerful thing, doing the kinds of things that you need to be doing in the Jetburn meta. So that's going to wrap up my profile for Asui 3. If you enjoy this deck profile and you think it's kind of neat, let me know how you feel about it down in the comments down below. And if you haven't done so, consider liking and subscribing. Once again, I know it's been about a week and a half, and I apologize for that. I'm still a little congested. But I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. So thank you for entering the chamber, and I'll see you around. Bye, guys.